The Sith were never supposed to survive. Again and again, they were destroyed. Their empires collapsed. Their temples fell. Their armies vanished into history. Yet somehow they always returned. Different names, different faces, different eras, but the same darkness, the same ambition, the same obsession. For thousands of years, the galaxy believed the Sith were searching for power. But what if power was never the true goal? What if every war, every betrayal, every forbidden ritual was part of a much older mission, a mission to defeat death itself? Because hidden throughout Star Wars history is a disturbing pattern. Certain Sith seemed less concerned with ruling the galaxy than with escaping something far more terrifying. The possibility of being forgotten, the possibility of disappearing, the possibility that one day they would simply cease to exist. And the deeper they searched for answers, the stranger their discoveries became. Ancient tombs that appeared alive, lost worlds that seemed to remember their creators, rituals capable of preserving fragments of consciousness, legends suggesting that death may not be the end of the journey at all. Somewhere within these mysteries lies a possibility so unsettling that even the Jedi rarely spoke about it. A possibility that changes how we understand the Force itself. Because what if the Sith who refused to die were not chasing immortality? What if they had already discovered something far worse? Tonight, we follow that trail into one of the darkest secrets in all of Star Wars. Theory 1. Death was never the Sith's greatest enemy, forgetting was. When people think about Sith immortality, they usually imagine physical survival. They imagine ancient lords preserving their bodies, transferring their spirits, or returning through forbidden rituals. Yet there is another possibility, one that may explain why so many Sith devoted extraordinary effort to preserving knowledge long after their deaths. Perhaps the Sith were never truly trying to save their bodies at all. Perhaps they were trying to save themselves. There is an important difference between those ideas. A body is temporary. Even the most powerful Force user cannot stop time forever. Flesh weakens, organs fail, entire civilizations disappear into dust. The Sith understood this better than anyone. Many of their greatest empires collapsed despite centuries of dominance. Yet one thing continued to survive. Ideas. A Sith Lord could perish. Their fortress could crumble. Their followers could scatter. But their teachings could remain. Their influence could endure through generations of students who never met them. Their ambitions could shape events centuries after their death. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout Sith history. Ancient Sith holocrons were never simple archives. They often contained fragments of personality, guidance, opinions, reactions. Some even seemed capable of holding conversations with those who activated them. It was as though the Sith were attempting to preserve more than knowledge. They were attempting to preserve identity. That distinction changes everything. Imagine a Sith Lord approaching the end of life. They know they cannot halt death forever. They know even the most powerful rituals eventually fail. Yet they also know that memory can survive. What if immortality is not about preserving a body? What if it is about ensuring that your will continues to shape reality indefinitely? Viewed through this lens, every Sith temple becomes something more than architecture. Every holocron becomes more than a storage device. Every apprentice becomes more than a student. They become extensions of the self, a way for the Sith Lord to continue influencing events long after physical death. In a strange sense, Darth Bane never truly disappeared. Neither did Revan. Neither did countless others whose ideas continued to shape future generations. Their physical forms vanished. Their influence did not. The Sith who refused to die may therefore have discovered something profoundly unsettling. They may have realized that existence is not measured by heartbeat alone. A person survives as long as they continue shaping the world around them. And if that is true, then some Sith may have achieved a form of immortality far more stable than any ritual. Because memories can spread, teachings can multiply, ideas can infect entire civilizations. And unlike flesh, ideas do not age. Theory 2. The Sith language may preserve consciousness. Languages are usually viewed as tools, ways of communicating thoughts between individuals. Yet throughout history, certain cultures have believed language possesses deeper power, that words themselves can alter reality. The Sith language presents a fascinating mystery in this regard. Ancient Sith inscriptions appear throughout temples, tombs, relics, and forbidden texts. These writings are often treated as historical artifacts, yet their effects sometimes seem strangely disproportionate to ordinary language. Certain inscriptions inspire fear. Others appear connected to rituals. Some seem to carry emotional weight long after their creators have vanished. What if the language itself serves a purpose beyond communication? The Sith were obsessed with preservation. They sought ways to leave pieces of themselves behind. Most theories focus on spirits and artifacts, but language may represent an overlooked possibility. Consider how human beings already preserve aspects of themselves through writing. A journal written centuries ago can reveal personality, emotions, fears, and ambitions. Readers can feel as though they are speaking directly with someone long dead. Now imagine that process enhanced through the Force. Imagine words intentionally crafted to carry fragments of thought, emotion, or even consciousness. Over generations, these writings could become something more than records. They could become vessels. This might explain why certain Sith texts are treated with such caution. The danger may not come solely from forbidden knowledge. It may come from exposure to the minds that created them. Every sentence becomes a doorway. Every inscription becomes a fingerprint left upon reality. A Sith Lord seeking immortality might not need to preserve a body if they could preserve a mind. They could encode themselves into teachings, layer fragments of consciousness into language, leave behind pieces of identity waiting to be awakened by future readers. Such a method would be extraordinarily difficult to detect. Historians would see texts, archaeologists would see inscriptions, yet hidden beneath the words could exist something far more enduring: the author. And if enough fragments survive across enough locations, perhaps the Sith never truly vanish. They simply become distributed, scattered throughout their own language, like ghosts hidden between sentences. The Sith who refused to die may not be trapped within tombs. They may be waiting within the words themselves. Theory 3, the first Sith tomb, was never a tomb. Across Sith history, tombs occupy a central role. Ancient worlds, such as Korriban, became landscapes of colossal burial monuments. Massive structures built to honor dead lords and preserve their legacies, or so it appears. Yet one question is rarely asked. Why did the Sith invest so much effort into tombs? The obvious answer is remembrance. Powerful rulers often construct monuments to preserve prestige after death. But Sith culture rarely values sentimentality. It values utility, power, control, which raises a troubling possibility. What if the earliest Sith tombs were never intended for the dead? What if they were intended for the living? Many ancient tombs contain elaborate chambers, hidden pathways, ritual spaces, and strange Force phenomena. These features often seem excessive for simple burial sites. Some appear almost engineered to perform specific functions, perhaps because they were. Imagine an ancient Sith Lord confronting mortality. Instead of accepting death, they design a structure capable of anchoring consciousness, a place where dark side energy can accumulate for centuries. A machine disguised as a tomb. Over time, later generations misunderstand its purpose. What began as an immortality device gradually becomes interpreted as a mausoleum. The original function is forgotten. Only the appearance remains. This possibility becomes even more intriguing when considering how active many Sith tombs appear long after their creators die. Visitors report visions, voices, presences, emotional disturbances. It is almost as though the tomb continues operating. Perhaps because it does. Perhaps these structures are not memorials. Perhaps they are engines. Ancient mechanisms designed to gather, store, and focus dark side energy across vast stretches of time. If so, then every Sith tomb may represent an unfinished experiment, a long-term project extending centuries beyond the death of its creator. And somewhere in the distant past, the first Sith Lord to build such a structure may have discovered something extraordinary, that the easiest way to survive death was not to preserve the body. It was to create a place where death could never fully reach you. A sanctuary built from stone, ritual, and darkness. A sanctuary that future generations would mistake for a grave, when in reality it was never meant to hold the dead at all. Theory 4. Darth Plagueis may have discovered the wrong kind of immortality. Few stories in Star Wars are as haunting as the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise. According to Palpatine, Plagueis became so powerful and so knowledgeable that he learned how to influence the midi-chlorians themselves. He could create life. He could prevent death. He possessed knowledge that countless Sith before him had spent entire lifetimes seeking. And yet he died. Or at least, that is the version of the story most beings accept. But there is something strange about Plagueis' legend. If he truly came closer to conquering death than any Sith before him, why does history remember only his failure? Why does the story end precisely at the moment when it becomes most interesting? Perhaps because everyone has been asking the wrong question. The assumption has always been that Plagueis sought to preserve his body, that he wanted to continue living exactly as he was. Yet immortality takes many forms. What if the achievement he sought was something far stranger? Imagine spending decades studying the deepest mysteries of life itself. Imagine learning how consciousness emerges, how living beings connect to the Force, how life enters the galaxy and how it leaves. Such research might eventually reveal a truth so profound that physical survival becomes secondary. Perhaps Plagueis discovered that consciousness does not vanish. Perhaps he learned that death is not extinction, but transformation. If that were true, then the goal would no longer be preserving the body. The goal would be controlling what happens afterward. This interpretation casts his story in an entirely different light. When Palpatine murdered his master, Plagueis may not have been defeated. He may have simply entered the next phase of an experiment already years in progress. His physical form died, but perhaps that was never the part he cared about most. There is another detail worth considering. Palpatine himself became obsessed with immortality. For someone who betrayed his master and claimed ultimate power, he spent an extraordinary amount of effort continuing Plagueis' research. Cloning, essence transfer, Exegol, endless attempts to survive beyond death. Why perhaps? Because he inherited more than teachings. Perhaps he inherited a mystery. Secret Plagueis discovered but never fully explained. A door that had been opened but not crossed. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis may therefore not be that he failed. The tragedy may be that he succeeded in a way nobody understood. A success so unusual that future generations mistook it for defeat. And somewhere beyond the limits of ordinary perception, the experiment may still be continuing. Theory 5. Some Sith may have become part of entire planets. When most people imagine immortality, they think of individuals surviving. A spirit, a body, a consciousness continuing beyond death. Yet the Force operates on scales far larger than any single person. Entire worlds can become saturated with energy. Certain planets feel alive in ways that are difficult to explain. Places such as Exegol, Korriban, and Malachor possess atmospheres unlike anywhere else in the galaxy. Visitors often describe overwhelming sensations: fear, anger, despair, presence. It is almost as though the planets themselves remember. What if they do? Throughout Sith history, countless rituals were performed on these worlds. Countless wars were fought. Countless emotions were unleashed. For centuries, the dark side accumulated layer upon layer, soaking into the environment like water sinking into stone. Over time, a remarkable possibility emerges. What if powerful Sith did not merely inhabit these worlds? What if they merged with them? The Force connects all living things. If a Sith Lord became sufficiently powerful, perhaps they could spread their consciousness beyond the boundaries of a physical body. Not into another vessel, but into an entire landscape, a mountain range, a valley, a temple complex, eventually an entire planet. The result would not resemble traditional survival. There would be no ghost wandering corridors, no resurrected body sitting upon a throne. Instead, the Sith would become environmental, a presence embedded within reality itself. Visitors would feel watched, without seeing eyes. They would experience emotions that seem to emerge from nowhere. They would hear whispers they cannot explain. The planet itself would become the Sith Lord's final form. This theory offers an intriguing explanation for why certain dark side worlds remain dangerous thousands of years after their creators vanished. The threat is not historical. It is ongoing. The Sith are still there, not as individuals, not as spirits, but as living scars within the Force. Ancient consciousnesses stretched across. Landscapes so vast that death could no longer contain them. And perhaps every traveler who steps onto such a world unknowingly enters the mind of something that refused to disappear. Theory 6. The dark side could be creating its own immortals. The Jedi often speak of balance. They describe the Force as a living energy field that connects and sustains all life. Yet the dark side remains one of the greatest mysteries within that system. Is it merely a corruption, or is it something more? Throughout galactic history, certain Sith have displayed extraordinary resilience. They survive wounds that should be fatal. They persist through impossible circumstances. Some even continue exerting influence after death itself. The common explanation is personal power, but perhaps there is another possibility. What if the dark side has goals of its own? This idea may sound unsettling, but it is supported by an interesting pattern. Certain locations saturated with dark side energy appear almost protective of those who serve them. Ancient temples strengthen dark side users. Powerful artifacts seem to preserve influence across generations. Entire cults survive for centuries around forgotten teachings. It is as though something wants them to continue. Imagine the dark side not as a passive tool, but as an active force seeking survival. Like any living system, it would benefit from preserving effective agents. Sith Lords who expand its influence, priests who spread its teachings, cults that ensure its continuation. Under such circumstances, immortality would no longer be purely self-created. It would be granted. Certain individuals might receive forms of preservation because their existence serves a larger purpose. Their consciousness remains, their influence lingers, their presence continues shaping events long after death should have claimed them. This possibility radically changes the relationship between Sith and dark side. Most Sith believe they control it. Most Sith believe they dominate it through strength and willpower. But what if the opposite is true? What if the greatest Sith in history survived because the dark side chose to keep them? What if every resurrection, every lingering spirit, every impossible survival represents not individual achievement, but selection, a reward offered by something vast and ancient? If that is true, then the Sith who refuse to die may never have conquered death at all. They may simply have become useful enough that the darkness itself refused to let them go. And that possibility may be more frightening than immortality itself. Theory 7. Ancient Sith temples may still be thinking. Across the galaxy stand ruins older than most civilizations can comprehend. Massive stone complexes buried beneath deserts, forgotten sanctuaries hidden within mountains, vast structures abandoned long before the Republic reached its height. Historians often describe these places as relics. Archaeologists classify them as ruins. Yet many who have visited them report a deeply unsettling feeling, the sensation that they are not alone. At first glance, this might seem like nothing more than the influence of the dark side. After all, Sith temples were designed to channel powerful energies. It is only natural that visitors would experience strange emotions in such places. But there is another possibility. What if the temples themselves are active participants in the process? Throughout history, the Sith viewed knowledge differently than the Jedi. The Jedi preserved wisdom through teaching and mentorship. The Sith often embedded knowledge directly into physical structures. Their temples were not simply buildings. They were repositories of secrets, rituals, and accumulated power. Over centuries, these structures absorbed countless emotions: fear, rage, ambition, hatred. Every ritual performed within their walls left an imprint. Every sacrifice added another layer. Every generation contributed to an ever-growing reservoir of dark side energy. Eventually, a fascinating question emerges. Can enough accumulated consciousness create something new? If thousands of minds leave traces behind over centuries, perhaps those traces begin to interact. Perhaps they merge. Perhaps they develop patterns. And perhaps, given enough time, those patterns evolve into something resembling thought, not a living being in the traditional sense, something else. A structure capable of remembering, capable of responding, capable of influencing those who enter its halls. This theory would explain why some ancient Sith temples seem almost selective in how they reveal information. Certain visitors experience visions while others do not. Some uncover hidden chambers. Others leave empty-handed. The temple appears to react differently depending on who enters, almost as though it is making decisions. Imagine a temple that has spent thousands of years observing every visitor, learning from every interaction, preserving every fragment of knowledge left behind. Such a structure would become more than architecture. It would become a mind, slow, ancient, alien, a consciousness spread across stone corridors and forgotten chambers. The Sith who built these places may have unknowingly created something extraordinary, a form of survival that does not depend on bodies, spirits, or resurrection. A survival embedded within the very walls themselves. And somewhere in the deepest corners of the galaxy, there may still be temples quietly waiting, thinking, and remembering long after their creators have vanished. Theory 8. The Sith tried to escape the Force itself. The Sith spent centuries searching for immortality. Yet perhaps they eventually discovered a terrifying problem. The Force always wins. No matter how powerful a Sith becomes, the Force remains larger. Empires collapse, dynasties end. Great lords disappear into history. The Force continues. This realization may have driven some Sith toward an unexpected conclusion. Perhaps death is not the true prison. Perhaps the Force is. The Jedi view unity with the Force as a gift, a return to something greater, a final harmony. To them, becoming one with the Force represents fulfillment, but the Sith reject surrender in all forms. To a Sith, losing individuality is not enlightenment. It is annihilation. Imagine discovering that every living being ultimately returns to the Force. Every memory, every ambition, every desire, everything that makes an individual unique eventually dissolves into something larger. For a Sith, this would be horrifying. It would mean that death is only the beginning of a deeper loss, the loss of self. This theory suggests that some Sith immortality experiments were not designed to avoid death. They were designed to avoid absorption. The goal was not survival of the body. The goal was preservation of identity. Certain rituals may therefore have served a very specific purpose, anchoring consciousness outside the normal cycle of life and death, preventing the individual from being fully reclaimed by the Force. This would explain why many Sith spirits appear trapped. Unlike Jedi Force ghosts, they often seem bound to locations, objects, or rituals. They remain isolated, separate, distinct. Perhaps because that is exactly what they wanted. They chose imprisonment over dissolution. They chose confinement over surrender. They chose existence, no matter how limited, rather than allowing themselves to become part of something larger. Viewed from this perspective, Sith immortality becomes deeply tragic. The Jedi achieve peace by accepting their place within the Force. The Sith preserve themselves by refusing it. One path leads to harmony, the other leads to endless isolation, and yet, for those who fear losing themselves, isolation may seem preferable. The Sith who refused to die may therefore have been fighting a battle far greater than mortality. They may have been fighting the Force itself. Theory 9. The Rule of Two was secretly an immortality experiment. The Rule of Two is one of the most famous principles in Sith history. Created by Darth Bane, it established that only two Sith should exist at any given time. One master to possess power, one apprentice to crave it. At first glance, the rule appears straightforward. It prevents internal conflict. It strengthens the order. It ensures that each generation surpasses the previous one. But what if there was another purpose hidden beneath the surface? Consider how unusual the Rule of Two really is. Most organizations seek growth. They expand, they recruit, they increase numbers. The Sith deliberately did the opposite. They reduced themselves to the smallest possible structure. Why? Perhaps because the Rule of Two was never just about survival of the Sith Order. Perhaps it was about survival of the Sith individual. Every apprentice inherits the teachings of the Master. Every generation receives accumulated knowledge from the one before it. Over centuries, a remarkable process occurs. The same ambitions continue. The same philosophies continue. The same goals continue. The same identity continues. Eventually, the distinction between generations begins to blur. A master trains an apprentice. That apprentice becomes a master. The cycle repeats again and again. For 1,000 years. What if Darth Bane realized something profound? What if true immortality does not require preserving a single consciousness? What if it only requires preserving a continuous pattern? Imagine a flame passed from candle to candle. The original flame disappears, yet something essential remains. The fire continues despite constant change. The rule of two may have functioned in exactly this way. Each Sith Lord becomes part of an unbroken chain stretching across centuries. Knowledge flows continuously from one generation into the next. Ideas survive. Methods survive. Ambitions survive. In a sense, the Order itself becomes immortal. But there may be an even darker possibility. Certain Sith traditions emphasize essence transfer and possession. If fragments of consciousness can move between individuals, then the relationship between master and apprentice takes on a far more sinister meaning. The apprentice may not simply inherit teachings, they may inherit pieces of the master, tiny fragments carried forward through generations. Pieces accumulating over centuries, a hidden continuity concealed beneath apparent succession. By the time Palpatine emerges, he may represent more than a single Sith Lord. He may embody the accumulated legacy of every generation that came before him. Not literally, but perhaps spiritually, psychologically, even metaphysically. If this theory is true, then the rule of two was never merely a political strategy. It was an immortality machine, a system designed to carry the essence of the Sith forward indefinitely. A chain that could survive wars, purges, betrayals, and the passage of time itself. And for 1,000 years, it worked, generation after generation, master after apprentice, until the Sith became something larger than any one individual, a living tradition that refused to die. Theory 10. Exegol was built to manufacture eternity. When most people think of Exegol, they remember fleets, endless rows of star destroyers hidden beneath dark skies, armies waiting in silence, cultists serving a purpose few outsiders could comprehend. It appeared to be the ultimate military stronghold. But what if everyone focused on the wrong thing? What if the fleets were only a symptom? What if Exegol's true purpose was something far older and far more important to the Sith, the conquest of death? For centuries, Sith Lords pursued immortality through countless methods: alchemy, possession, ritual sacrifice, forbidden sciences, ancient technologies. Every generation inherited fragments of knowledge from the one before it. Every generation added new discoveries, yet most of these experiments shared a common problem. They were isolated: a single tomb, a single artifact, a single ritual, a single Sith Lord seeking personal survival. Exegol feels different. Exegol feels industrial. The scale alone suggests something unprecedented. Entire facilities dedicated to cloning, massive ritual chambers, vast repositories of knowledge hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Everything about the planet implies long-term, systematic effort, almost as though immortality itself had become a manufacturing process. Imagine generations of Sith researchers working toward a common objective. Not preserving one individual, not resurrecting one ruler, but creating a repeatable system capable of defeating mortality permanently. Every experiment contributes data. Every failure reveals new information. Every generation builds upon the work of the previous one. Over centuries, Exegol transforms into something resembling a laboratory dedicated to eternity. This would explain why Palpatine invested so much effort into preserving the world despite its isolation. Military assets could be hidden elsewhere. Fleets could be constructed elsewhere. Yet Exegol remained central, because Exegol was not merely a fortress. It was the culmination of 1,000 years of obsession, a place where Sith science and Sith mysticism merged into a single project. The ultimate goal was never domination. Domination was merely the reward. The real objective was permanence, the ability to survive any defeat, any war, any catastrophe, any death. Viewed through this lens, Exegol becomes one of the most important locations in Sith history, not because of what emerged from it, but because of what it was designed to accomplish. A world built for a single purpose: to turn immortality from a dream into a system, to transform survival from an exception into a certainty. And if even a fraction of its research survived, then the fall of Exegol may not represent the end of the project, Only the destruction of one facility among many possibilities. Theory 11. The world between. Worlds may contain dead Sith. Among the most mysterious discoveries in modern Star Wars lore is the world between worlds, a realm existing outside conventional space and time, a place where pathways connect moments that should never meet. Its existence changes everything. Before its discovery, history seemed linear. Events occurred, choices were made, time moved forward. The world between worlds suggests a reality far more complicated than anyone imagined. Naturally, this raises an uncomfortable question. If the Jedi eventually discovered this place, who is to say the Sith never found traces of it first? The Sith spent millennia searching for hidden knowledge. Ancient gateways, lost dimensions, secrets concealed from ordinary perception. Their entire history is filled with expeditions into places others feared to explore. It seems almost inevitable that at least some Sith would become aware of a realm existing beyond time itself. Now consider what such a discovery might mean. For a Sith obsessed with immortality, the world between worlds would represent the ultimate prize, a location where ordinary rules no longer apply. Theory 12. Some Sith may have survived as Force echoes. Not every form of immortality requires a spirit. Not every form of survival requires consciousness. There may exist something in between. Throughout Star Wars lore, certain locations appear haunted by events rather than individuals. Visitors experience visions of ancient battles. They witness fragments of history replaying themselves. They encounter emotions so intense that they seem preserved within the environment. These phenomena are often described as Force echoes, residual imprints left behind by powerful experiences. At first glance, Force echoes seem relatively harmless, a kind of memory embedded within reality. Yet what happens when the individual creating the echo is a Sith Lord of extraordinary power? What happens when the emotions involved are not ordinary emotions, but overwhelming hatred, boundless ambition, absolute obsession? The resulting imprint could be immense, perhaps immense enough to behave almost like a living thing. Imagine a Sith who spends decades channeling every thought toward a single purpose. Every victory, every betrayal, every act of will concentrated into one identity. Upon death, that concentration does not disappear completely. Instead, it leaves a scar, a permanent distortion within the Force. Over centuries, the echo continues interacting with the environment, influencing perceptions, shaping emotions, guiding discoveries, nudging events in subtle ways. Eventually, distinguishing between an echo and a spirit becomes difficult. The echo remembers. The echo reacts. The echo influences. Yet it may not truly be conscious. It may simply be repeating patterns so powerful that they appear alive. This creates a fascinating possibility. Some of the Sith believed to have survived death may not actually be spirits at all. They may be Force echoes so potent that they imitate life. Copies created by emotional intensity rather than conscious preservation. The difference is subtle, but important, because an echo cannot be destroyed in the same way a spirit can. You cannot defeat a memory. You cannot kill a scar. You cannot eliminate an imprint embedded within reality itself. The Sith who refused to die may therefore have discovered a different path to immortality, not survival. Replication. The creation of Force impressions so powerful that future generations continue encountering them long after the original individual has vanished. And perhaps some of those echoes have become so strong that the galaxy no longer knows the difference between memory and life, between the dead and the living, between what remains and what truly survives. Theory 13. Darth Vader may have inherited Plagueis' obsession. Few figures in galactic history embody the fear of loss more completely than Darth Vader. Before the armor, before the title, before the galaxy came to know him as the Emperor's enforcer, he was Anakin Skywalker, a man haunted by visions, a man terrified that the people he loved would be taken from him. Most discussions of Anakin's fall focus on power, manipulation, or prophecy. Those factors certainly mattered, yet beneath them all lay something simpler and far more human. The fear of death. Not his own death, someone else's. That fear became the foundation upon which everything else was built. It shaped his decisions. It influenced his loyalties. It made him vulnerable to promises that he might otherwise have rejected. And those promises lead directly back to Darth Plagueis.
Push them back.
The story Palpatine tells at the opera is often viewed as a recruitment tool, a carefully constructed temptation designed to lure Anakin toward the dark side. But what if there was more to it than that? What if Palpatine was sharing an obsession that had already consumed generations of Sith, an obsession inherited from master to apprentice, passed down like a sacred secret? Imagine Anakin entering the Sith Order believing he could prevent death, believing he could reverse fate itself, believing that somewhere within the dark side existed knowledge capable of saving those he loved. Even after Padme's death, that obsession may never have disappeared. It may simply have changed shape. Inside the armor, Vader becomes a man defined by survival. His body exists in a state that borders on impossible. He continues living despite injuries that should have ended any ordinary life. Every breath requires machinery. Every movement depends upon technology. In some ways, Vader himself becomes an experiment, a fusion of flesh, machine, and dark side endurance. Perhaps this condition deepened his fascination with mortality. Every day served as a reminder that life could be extended beyond natural limits. Every day demonstrated that the boundary between life and death was more flexible than most people believed. This raises an intriguing possibility. What if Vader continued studying immortality in secret? Not necessarily to resurrect Padme, not necessarily to overthrow Palpatine, but simply because he could not let go of the question that started everything. The question that destroyed Anakin Skywalker: can death be defeated? If so, Vader's journey becomes even more tragic. A man who sacrificed everything in pursuit of an answer he never found. A man who inherited the greatest obsession in Sith history and carried it until the very end. Not because he desired power, but because he could never stop searching for a way to undo loss. Theory 14. The Chosen One prophecy may have been about death. The Chosen One prophecy is one of the most debated mysteries in Star Wars lore. Entire generations have argued over its meaning. Some believe it concerns balance. Others focus on the destruction of the Sith. Still others question whether anyone understood it correctly at all. Perhaps the reason for this confusion is simple. Perhaps everyone has been looking at the wrong problem. Throughout the saga, death stands at the center of nearly every major conflict. Anakin fears it. The Jedi accept it. The Sith fight against it. Entire wars are shaped by how different groups respond to mortality. This pattern appears too consistently to ignore. What if the prophecy was never solely about defeating the Sith? What if it was about restoring a healthy relationship between life and death? The Sith seek domination over mortality. They refuse to accept its existence. They pursue endless methods of preservation. Their history becomes an escalating series of attempts to escape a natural process. The Jedi take the opposite approach. They emphasize acceptance, trust, harmony with the Force. In many ways, these philosophies represent opposing responses to the same reality. One seeks control, the other seeks understanding. The Chosen One may therefore represent a corrective force within the galaxy, a figure destined to address the imbalance created by centuries of Sith obsession, not by eliminating death, but by preventing others from corrupting its role within the cosmic order. This interpretation casts Anakin's life in a fascinating new light. His greatest flaw is his inability to accept loss. His greatest tragedy emerges from his attempt to prevent death. His fall empowers the Sith. His redemption destroys them. Every major stage of his journey revolves around mortality. The pattern is remarkably consistent, perhaps because the prophecy itself revolves around mortality. Perhaps balance was never merely political or spiritual. Perhaps balance concerned the proper relationship between life, death, and the Force. If so, then the Sith who refused to die were not simply villains seeking power. They were participants in a much larger conflict, a conflict over the fundamental structure of existence. and the Chosen One stood at the center of that struggle, not because he was destined to conquer death, but because he was destined to confront those who refused to accept it. Theory 15. The Sith wanted more than immortality. When discussing the Sith, immortality often appears as the ultimate goal. It is easy to understand why. Countless rituals, experiments, and legends point toward a desire to survive beyond death. Yet there is something curious about this assumption. For beings obsessed with power, immortality alone seems strangely modest. After all, what good is eternal life if you remain limited? What good is endless existence if you remain subject to the same constraints? The Sith rarely pursue one objective in isolation. Their ambitions tend to expand. Every achievement becomes a stepping stone toward something greater. Every victory creates new desires. Perhaps immortality was never the destination. Perhaps it was merely the first requirement. Imagine achieving perfect survival. Imagine eliminating age, disease, and death. What would happen next? For most people, that would be enough. For the Sith, it would only be the beginning. Freed from mortality, they could dedicate centuries to mastering the Force, millennia to accumulating knowledge, entire ages to shaping civilizations according to their vision. Eventually, the distinction between ruler and reality itself might begin to blur. This possibility appears repeatedly throughout Sith history. Certain lords sought godhood rather than mere survival. Others attempted to reshape worlds. Some experimented with altering life on a planetary scale. These ambitions suggest something important. The Sith were not searching for eternity because they feared death alone. They were searching for eternity because they needed time. Time to complete projects too vast for ordinary lifespans. Time to pursue forms of power that mortal beings could never fully attain. In this framework, immortality becomes a tool, a foundation, a prerequisite. The real objective lies beyond it. What exactly that objective was remains uncertain. Perhaps ultimate control over the Force. Perhaps complete freedom from all limitations. Perhaps transformation into something entirely new. Whatever the answer, it likely exceeded anything most beings could imagine. The Sith who refused to die may therefore have been pursuing a horizon. Theory 16. The dark side may remember every Sith who ever lived. History is fragile. Entire civilizations vanish. Libraries burn. Languages disappear. Empires collapse beneath the weight of time. Even the greatest achievements eventually fade into memory, and memory itself rarely survives forever. Yet the Force does not experience history the way ordinary beings do. The Force connects everything, every life, every choice, every victory, every act of love, fear, hope, and hatred. Nothing truly exists outside its reach. Nothing occurs beyond its awareness. If that is true, then a fascinating possibility emerges. Perhaps the dark side remembers, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. Throughout Sith history, powerful individuals poured unimaginable amounts of emotion into the Force. Rage strong enough to reshape worlds. Ambition capable of toppling governments. Hatred intense enough to scar entire planets. These emotions did not simply vanish. Energy leaves traces, and the dark side may preserve those traces in ways nobody fully understands. Imagine the dark side as an ocean. Every Sith who ever lived becomes a drop entering its depths. Most beings assume the drop disappears. But what if it does not? What if individual patterns remain distinguishable long after merging with the whole? Tiny fragments of personality, fragments of memory, fragments of desire, waiting beneath the surface. This theory suggests that every Sith contributes something permanent to the dark side. Not enough to survive as a complete individual, not enough to remain unchanged, but enough to leave behind an imprint. Over thousands of years, those imprints accumulate. The dark side becomes a vast archive of former Sith, a reservoir of ancient ambitions layered upon one another across countless generations. Perhaps this is why certain dark side users appear drawn toward ideas they have never studied. Perhaps this is why forgotten knowledge occasionally resurfaces. Perhaps this is why ancient patterns repeat themselves throughout history. The dark side remembers, and in remembering, it influences, not through direct control, not through conscious communication, but through subtle echoes buried within its depths. If this theory is correct, then no Sith ever truly disappears completely. Each contributes a piece of themselves to something far older and far larger than any individual, an endless collection of memories hidden beneath the surface of the Force, waiting, watching, accumulating, growing more complex with every passing century. Theory 17. The Force may be hiding the truth about death. The Jedi teach that death is natural. The Sith insist it can be overcome. For thousands of years, these opposing beliefs have shaped the history of the galaxy. Yet both philosophies share a remarkable assumption. They assume they understand what death is. What if neither side does? The Force remains one of the greatest mysteries in existence. Despite centuries of study, countless questions remain unanswered. The Jedi possess only fragments of understanding. The Sith possess different fragments. Neither group sees the entire picture. Death may be one of those missing pieces. Consider how little anyone truly knows about what happens afterward. Force ghosts exist. Spirits appear. Consciousness sometimes persists. Strange visions emerge from ancient places. Time itself behaves unpredictably within certain Force-related phenomena. These facts suggest that reality is far more complicated than most beings realize. Perhaps death is not a destination. Perhaps it is not even a transition. Perhaps it is simply a limitation of perception. Imagine a fish attempting to understand the ocean beyond its immediate surroundings. It sees only a tiny fraction of a much larger environment. Its conclusions are shaped by incomplete information. The same may be true of intelligent life within the galaxy. The Force could encompass dimensions, states of existence, and forms of consciousness that ordinary minds cannot perceive. Death would then appear mysterious only because observers lack sufficient perspective. This possibility leads to an unsettling idea. What if the Force intentionally conceals part of the truth? Not out of malice, not out of deception, but because complete understanding would fundamentally alter how life functions. Every culture, every religion, every civilization would change if the true nature of death became widely known. Fear would change. Hope would change. Meaning itself would change. Perhaps the Force maintains a veil between life and whatever lies beyond, because that uncertainty serves a purpose. The Sith spent millennia trying to tear that veil apart. The Jedi spent millennia learning to live with it. Neither side may have fully succeeded. And hidden behind that cosmic curtain may exist a truth so profound that both philosophies only glimpse fragments of it. A truth concerning existence itself. A truth concerning what death really means. Theory 18. The darkest secret is that nobody truly dies. At the heart of every Sith immortality story lies a simple fear. The fear of ending. The fear that one day consciousness disappears forever. The fear that everything a person has been, everything they have loved, everything they have built, eventually vanishes into nothingness. That fear drove Sith Lords to commit unimaginable acts. It inspired rituals, wars, experiments, betrayals. Entire civilizations were shaped by the desire to escape mortality. But what if the premise was flawed from the beginning? What if death was never extinction? Throughout Star Wars lore, countless clues point toward continuity rather than disappearance. The Force connects all life. Force ghosts retain awareness after physical death. Ancient presences linger within forgotten places. Memories survive where they should not. Echoes endure for centuries. Again and again, the galaxy presents evidence that consciousness may not end as cleanly as most beings assume. Perhaps existence simply changes form. Imagine a river flowing into the sea. The river ceases to exist as a river. Its shape changes. Its identity changes, yet the water remains. The Sith looked at this process and recoiled. They wanted to preserve the river exactly as it was. They wanted complete continuity, perfect individuality, eternal control. The Jedi accepted the transformation, but perhaps both groups were responding to the same underlying reality, that nothing truly disappears. The greatest irony would be that the Sith spent thousands of years searching for immortality when immortality already existed. Not the immortality they desired, not endless power, not permanent individuality, but continuation, connection, participation in something larger than themselves. This possibility reframes the entire history of the Sith. Every ritual becomes an attempt to resist a process that was never hostile. Every experiment becomes a struggle against a transition rather than an ending. Every obsession emerges from a misunderstanding. The Sith who refuse to die may therefore have uncovered the darkest secret of all. Not that death can be defeated, not that immortality can be achieved, but that existence itself may be impossible to extinguish. And if that is true, then the galaxy's oldest conflict was never about life and death. It was about acceptance. The Jedi learned to let go. The Sith refused. And somewhere between those two paths lies a mystery older than any empire, older than any prophecy, older perhaps than the galaxy itself, a mystery whispered through every generation, a mystery carried by every living thing connected to the Force, that nothing truly ends. It only becomes something else.